This happened to me about a year and a half ago, and I still get anxious thinking about it. I'm keeping this vague on purpose because the legal stuff is still ongoing, and I don't want anything traced back to me. All the names and locations here are fake. I've always been pretty self-sufficient, honestly. Growing up, my parents would say I marched to the beat of my own drum. I didn't need a ton of friends or constant validation. I was fine doing my own thing. That carried over into adulthood. When I graduated college at 22, I landed a pretty decent remote job in marketing and moved into my own one-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city about an hour from my hometown. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was mine. The building was older, maybe built in the 80s or 90s, with that kind of outdated carpeting in the hallways and fluorescent lighting that buzzed. But the rent was affordable and the location was solid, so I didn't complain. I'm a woman, and I guess that's relevant to my story. Living alone as a woman comes with its own set of anxieties that I think men don't always understand. You're hyper-aware of your surroundings. You check the backseat of your car before getting in. You don't go jogging at night with headphones in. It's just second nature at this point. But even with all that caution, I never expected what ended up happening. So it started small, and honestly, I didn't even think much of it at first. I had ordered some stuff online, just normal things like skincare products and a book I wanted to read. The tracking said it was delivered, but when I got home from running errands, it wasn't at my door. I figured maybe someone in the building took it by mistake, or it got delivered to the wrong apartment. It annoyed me, but I wasn't going to make a huge deal out of it. But then 2 days later, the package was sitting at my door, opened. The tape had been cut cleanly and the box was retaped with different tape, like the clear kind you'd get at a hardware store. Inside, everything was there, nothing missing. I thought maybe the delivery person opened it by accident or something. I don't know. I reported it to the apartment management just to have it on record, but they didn't seem too concerned. A week or so later, I noticed a car parked across the street from my building that I swear I had seen before. It was a dark blue sedan, maybe a Honda or Toyota. Nothing that stood out, but I started seeing it more often. Same spot. I'd leave for the grocery store and it'd be there. I'd come back an hour later and it'd still be there. One time I was looking out my window at night and I saw someone sitting in the driver's seat, but I couldn't make out any features because of the distance and the darkness. I told myself I was being paranoid. It's a public street. People can park wherever they want. But then I found the note. I came home from a work meeting at a coffee shop, unlocked my door, and there it was on the floor just inside my apartment. Someone had slipped it under the door. It was handwritten on lined notebook paper in blue pen. It said, "You left at 9:15 this morning. You were wearing the gray sweater. You got coffee at the place on 4th Street and stayed for 2 hours and 6 minutes. You came home and changed into the black leggings. You're so beautiful when you think no one is watching." My blood ran cold reading that. I immediately called the non-emergency police line and filed a report. An officer came by, took the note, asked me some questions about whether I had an ex-boyfriend or anyone who might have a reason to follow me. I didn't. I hadn't dated anyone seriously in over a year. He told me to be aware of my surroundings, change my routine if possible, and call again if anything else happened. That was it. I started feeling like I was losing my mind. I'd come home and things in my apartment would feel off. One day I came home and I absolutely knew that someone had been in my apartment. There was a bowl in the sink that I hadn't used. I lived alone. I hadn't had anyone over in weeks. The bowl had dried cereal residue in it, and I didn't even have that kind of cereal. Someone had eaten my food. I reported it again. This time I insisted the building management get involved. They told me only maintenance staff had keys and that they'd look into it. I demanded they install a camera or let me install one. And after some back and forth, I installed a small camera near my front door that faced into the living room. It took 3 days. I was out meeting a friend for lunch and I got a motion alert on my phone from the camera. I opened the app and watched in real time as a man in a maintenance uniform let himself into my apartment with a key. He was probably in his late 30s or early 40s, average build, wearing a baseball cap. He walked around slowly, looking at things. He picked up a framed photo of me and my family from the shelf and just stared at it. Then he went into my bedroom. The camera couldn't see in there, but he was in there for maybe 5 minutes. When he came out, he was holding one of my sweaters, the gray one mentioned in the note, and he buried his face in it. I felt physically sick watching it. He put it back and left. I saved the footage immediately and called the police. I also called the building management and absolutely lost it on them. I was shaking with rage and fear. They identified him as one of their maintenance workers. I'll call him John. They terminated him that same day and the police questioned him. He admitted to entering my unit multiple times but claimed he was just checking on things. The police said it wasn't enough for an arrest at that point, but they'd keep an eye on it. I couldn't believe it. This man had been watching me, entering my home, going through my things, and there were barely any consequences. 2 weeks later, I was walking to my car in the building's underground parking garage. It was around 9 p.m., and I had been working late on a project. The garage was dimly lit and mostly empty at that hour. As I approached my car, I saw someone step out from behind a concrete pillar. It was John. I recognized him immediately from the camera footage. He put his hands up like he was trying to seem non-threatening. I reached into my bag, grabbed the pepper spray I had started carrying and sprayed him directly in the face. He screamed and stumbled backward, and I ran. I ran back to the stairwell up to the lobby and I called 911 from there. He was arrested that night for stalking and trespassing. I got a restraining order. He was released on bail a few days later, which terrified me. But by that point, I had already made the decision to move. I couldn't stay in that building. I couldn't sleep knowing he had been in my bedroom, touching my things. I moved into a new apartment across town. Different building, different management company, better security. I didn't tell anyone my new address except my parents and my closest friends. I felt safer. I started sleeping through the night again without waking up in a panic. It was exactly 3 weeks after I moved in. I came home from grocery shopping, and there was a package at my door. I recognized it immediately. It was the same package that had gone missing months ago, the one that had been opened and returned. But this was impossible. I had thrown that box away. This was a different box, but it had the same products inside, the same everything. I'm in the process now of working with them on this case, and honestly, I don't feel safe anymore anywhere. I don't know how he found me or what he's planning. I'm looking into moving again, maybe to a completely different city. John's case is moving through the legal system, and that process has been exhausting. Someone I thought was just a random maintenance guy turned into someone who completely upended my sense of security. I was so focused on just living my life that I didn't even notice the signs early enough, like that car being parked outside repeatedly. I know this will stick with me forever, and honestly, even getting it out there anonymously feels like a small step toward processing everything. It's 2018. I'm 16 years old and living with my mom and my stepdad Rick in a quiet neighborhood outside of Dayton, Ohio. I won't get more specific than that. Rick married my mom about 2 years prior, and honestly, he's been amazing. Works in construction but still makes time to ask about my day every single night at dinner. He remembers details about my friends and my classes. When I mentioned once that I liked a certain candy bar, he came home with a whole box of them the next day. My biological dad left when I was young, so I never really had a father figure until Rick came along. He's been everything I could have asked for. Supportive, kind, never pushy. I got really lucky when my mom met him. Around September of that year, I start noticing strange things. The first thing is small. I'm walking home from my friend Kayla's house one evening. It's maybe like 7:30, and the sun is just starting to set. I get this feeling like someone is watching me. I turn around, and about half a block back, there's a figure standing on the sidewalk. I can't make out any features because of the distance and the lighting. They're just standing there. I walk faster and make it home without looking back again. I don't tell anyone about it because it seems silly. Maybe it was just someone out for a walk who happened to stop. But then it happens again 3 days later. I'm leaving school and walking toward the parking lot, where my mom usually picks me up. I glance across the street and there's someone standing next to a tree watching me. Same build as before, average height, dark hoodie. I squint and I swear I recognize the person. It's a guy from my English class. His name is Connor. He's quiet, keeps to himself, doesn't really talk to anyone. He's one of those kids who sits in the back and doesn't participate. I've never spoken to him directly. When I look again, he's gone. That night at dinner, I mentioned to my mom and Rick that I think someone's been following me. I don't say Connor's name yet because I'm not totally sure. Rick's face immediately fills with concern. He says he doesn't like the sound of that at all. He offers to start picking me up from school instead of my mom. He says he'll rearrange his whole work schedule if he needs to, because my safety is the most important thing. My mom agrees. I feel safer already just knowing Rick is taking this seriously. For the next week, Rick picks me up from school every day at exactly 3:15. He's never late, not once. But during that week, I see Connor 3 more times. Once standing near the bike rack staring at me. Once across the street from the coffee shop I go to with Kayla. And once near the end of my block when I'm getting the mail. Each time he doesn't approach me, he just watches. It's starting to terrify me. I tell Rick about Connor. I say his name this time and describe him. Rick listens carefully and says he thinks I should report it to the school. He offers to come with me. The next day we meet with the vice principal and I explain everything. They say they'll talk to Connor and keep an eye on the situation. Rick thanks them and squeezes my shoulder and tells me I did the right thing. Things are quiet for a few days. I don't see Connor anywhere. But then one night I'm in my room doing homework. It's probably like 9. I get up to close my blinds and I see someone standing across the street under the big oak tree. Same build, same dark hoodie. It has to be Connor. My heart drops. I duck away from the window and run downstairs. Rick is in the living room watching a game. My mom is in bed already. I tell him what I saw, and he immediately jumps up and goes outside. I watch from the front window as he walks across the street with his phone flashlight. He's out there for maybe 5 minutes before coming back inside. He says whoever it was is gone now, but he saw footprints in the dirt near the tree. He puts his arm around me and says he's going to protect me no matter what. He says he'll keep watch tonight and I should try to get some sleep. The next morning, Rick installs a motion sensor light above the garage. He also puts one in the backyard. He says if anyone comes near the house at night, the lights will scare them off. I hug him and thank him. He just smiles and says, that's what dads do. 2 days later, I start getting messages on Instagram from an account with no profile picture. The username is just random letters and numbers. The first message says, I see you. The second one says, you looked pretty today. I immediately think it's Connor. Who else would it be? I show my mom and Rick. My mom wants to go to the police immediately. Rick agrees and says he'll come with us. We go to the station that afternoon and file a report. The officer says accounts like that are hard to trace, but they'll look into it. Rick says he's going to install cameras around the house just to be safe. My mom agrees. I feel guilty for all the trouble, but Rick insists it's no trouble at all. The cameras go up the next day, one above the front door, one in the backyard facing the street. Rick shows me how to check the footage on my phone. He says I can look anytime I want, and that he'll be checking it regularly too. That Saturday, my mom works a double shift. It's just me and Rick at home. Around 6 p.m., I go to take the trash out to the curb. It's starting to get dark. As I'm walking back toward the house, someone steps out from behind the neighbor's fence. It's Connor. I freeze. He puts his hands up immediately like he's trying to show he's not a threat. Please don't scream, he says. I need to talk to you. Stay away from me, I say. My voice is shaking. I know you've been following me. I reported you. I know, he says, but you don't understand. I'm not the one you should be worried about. What are you talking about? Your stepdad, Connor says. I've seen him. He's been taking pictures of you, following you. I noticed it a few weeks ago when I saw him parked outside the school one day, when you were walking with your friends. I thought it was weird, so I started paying attention. He's always around, he's always watching you. My blood goes cold. You're lying. Rick wouldn't. Why do you think I've been nearby? I was trying to make sure you were safe. I didn't know how to tell you without sounding crazy. But it's him. I've never been the one standing under that tree at night. I've never sent you messages. Check the footage from his cameras, check his phone. I don't know what to say. I stand there staring at him. I know you don't believe me, Connor says quietly, but please just check. Please. He walks away before I can respond. I go back inside. Rick is in the kitchen making dinner. He smiles at me and asks if I'm okay. I say yes and go upstairs to my room. My hands are shaking. I open the app for the cameras on my phone. I scroll through the footage from the past few days. There's nothing unusual. Just me leaving for school. Me coming home. My mom's car. Rick's truck. But then I see it. A clip from 2 nights ago at 11:47 p.m. Rick walking out the front door, getting into his truck. I scroll further back. More clips. Him leaving at night, coming back hours later. I feel sick. I wait until he's in the shower. I go into the kitchen and find his phone on the counter. There are hundreds of them. Pictures of me at school, at Kayla's house, walking down the street, sitting in my room. Some of them are from before he even married my mom. I hear the shower turn off. I run out the back door with my phone and I call 911. Rick was arrested that night. They found even more on his laptop. The Instagram account was his. The cameras weren't for my protection. They were for him. Connor was right, and I almost didn't believe him. My mom and I moved out within 2 weeks. I never went back to that house. I still think about how wrong I was. How the person I trusted most was the one I should have feared, and how the person I feared was trying to save me. I never thought I'd be dealing with something like this, because I'm not the type of person who draws attention. I'm pretty average looking, I keep to myself, and I work a boring job as a night auditor at a hotel chain. So the idea that someone would single me out for whatever reason still doesn't make sense to me. But I guess that's just how these things go. It started about 2 years ago when I was working the overnight shift at the front desk. My shifts run from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., so I'm used to seeing the same handful of people. Delivery drivers, the occasional late check-in, that sort of thing. But one night in the dead zone of my shift, probably sometime after 2 a.m., this woman came in through the front doors and just stood in the lobby for a minute. She was maybe in her late 30s or early 40s, average build, wearing jeans and a zip-up hoodie. She didn't approach the desk or say anything. She just looked around like she was lost or waiting for someone. After about 30 seconds, she left. I figured maybe she had the wrong hotel or changed her mind about checking in. About a week later, same thing. She came in around the same time of night, stood in the lobby, looked around, and left. This time I asked if I could help her with anything, but she just shook her head and walked out. I thought it was weird, but didn't think much of it beyond that. The third time it happened, I decided to actually watch what she did after leaving. I stepped away from the desk and looked through the front windows. She walked to a sedan parked under the streetlight across from the entrance and got in, but didn't start the engine. Just sat there in the driver's seat staring back at the building. After maybe 5 minutes, she finally drove off. The whole thing felt wrong, but I wasn't sure what to make of it yet. This pattern continued for about a month. She'd show up once or twice a week, always during those dead hours between midnight and dawn. Sometimes she'd come inside and linger. Sometimes she'd just sit in that car. I started dreading seeing her because each visit felt more deliberate than the last, but I didn't know what to do about it, since she wasn't actually breaking any rules or threatening anyone. Then one night she came up to the desk. I don't remember the exact time, but it was late and the lobby was completely empty. She walked right up and asked if we had any rooms available. I said yes and started the check-in process. But halfway through she said, "Never mind," and left. I noticed her hands were shaking when she pushed the papers back toward me. A few months went by without any sign of her. I thought whatever it was had run its course. Then I saw her at the grocery store on my day off. It was early evening and I was grabbing stuff for dinner. I turned down the cereal aisle and she was standing at the far end, just staring directly at me. Not at the shelves, at me. When our eyes met, she didn't look away or pretend she'd been doing something else. She just kept staring for another few seconds before turning and walking toward the exit. That's when I knew this wasn't random. After that, I started seeing her everywhere. Her car would be idling in the parking lot of my apartment complex when I'd leave for my shift. I'd spotted 3 or 4 cars behind me on the drive to work. One morning I got off work and she was parked in the hotel lot even though checkout wasn't for hours. She was there when I wasn't even working. About 3 weeks ago, things took a turn I wasn't prepared for. I was walking to my car after my shift, and I heard footsteps behind me in the parking garage. I turned around and it was her. She was maybe 10 feet away, just standing there under the fluorescent lights. She said, "I need to talk to you." Her voice was quiet but insistent. I told her I didn't know her and to leave me alone. She took a step closer and said, "You don't understand. We're connected. I've been trying to show you." I got in my car as fast as I could and locked the doors. She didn't try to stop me, just stood there watching as I drove away. I called the police that same morning and filed a report. They took my statement and said they'd look into it. 2 days later, an officer called me back and said they'd identified her and gone to her address to issue a warning. Her name was Monica, and apparently she had a history of this kind of behavior with other men. The officer told me to call immediately if she came near me again, and that I should consider getting a restraining order. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. But 4 nights ago, I was halfway through my shift when she came into the lobby again. This time she walked straight up to the desk and put both hands flat on the counter. She leaned forward and said, "They told me to stay away from you, but they don't understand what we have." I grabbed the phone to call the police and she smiled at me. Not a friendly smile. Something was deeply wrong in that smile. She said, "I know which apartment is yours. 3B. I've been inside." I froze. I live in 3B. I've lived there for 3 years. She turned and walked out before I could even process what she'd said. I called the police immediately, and then I called my landlord. When my shift ended, 2 officers met me at my apartment. We searched the entire place. Nothing was missing and there were no signs of forced entry. But I found a small stack of photographs tucked behind my dresser. They were pictures of me. Some were taken at work through the hotel windows. Some were taken at my apartment complex. One was of me sleeping in my bed. I didn't stay there that night. I packed a bag and went to my brother's place. The police arrested Monica the next day for breaking and entering and stalking. They found more photos at her house, along with a journal where she'd written pages and pages about me and our supposed relationship. Apparently, in her mind, we'd been together for years. She's in custody now awaiting trial. I've moved to a different apartment and I'm transferring to a different hotel location across town. The whole thing still feels surreal. Someone I'd never met or spoken to before had built an entire fantasy life around me, and somehow convinced herself it was real. I still can't sleep properly. Every sound in my new place makes me think someone's inside. I know this is going to stick with me for a long time.